Good afternoon, everyone. This is Adarsh. Thank you for taking the time to join this webinar today. Our focus on today's webinar is to give you a tour of operations and resource management in Movegistics. Our co-founder at Netensity, Casey Fox, will be covering an incredible amount of valuable information that we hope will help you streamline vital areas on the operations side. All right, let's get started. Casey, over to you.
Thanks, Adarsh. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. I see a lot of the same faces and names on the list here, and just a real brief overview. My name is Casey Fox. I'm co-founder and advisor here for Netensity, but primarily I'm a moving company owner. I'm an end user of Movegistics as well, and I've been in the industry for almost 20 years, starting out as a mover and doing a little bit of everything. My company, we're on the Central Coast in California, medium-sized company. We run about 15 trucks and have 50 employees, covering local, long distance, interstate. We're a TSP. We have a DoD-approved SCAC. We do final mile deliveries, commercial, little bit of everything. And we use Movegistics 100% for our dispatching and resource management operations. And so I wanted to just go over some of the settings and features that you may or may not be aware of or using, and show you how my company uses Movegistics to manage all of these things. And so along the way, if you have questions, again, please post them on the chat feature. I'm going to just give you a quick high-level overview of some of the things that we're going to be covering here. Starting with settings and some important lists that are in the settings. We'll talk about shifts and resource type. We'll also get into the calendar settings and very heavily into the calendar as well, which is really kind of the heart of the system and the heart of dispatch. We'll also get into worker profile and show you some new features, again, that you may or may not be using, and also managing equipment and availability counts with all of the above. So availability counts will cover the worker side, how to do time off request in various forms, putting equipment out of service either for extended or single occurrences, and then also how to view your overall availability and what those counts mean and how to use those to the best of your ability. We'll cover our traditional method of dispatching, which is through work orders, and we'll just kind of go through the work order, maybe explain how some of the things interact with each other. Again, I'll outline a couple of new features that you may not be aware of or using, and just kind of covering the work orders in depth because those really are the foundation for dispatching. Lastly, we're going to get into our forecast view on the calendar, which is, for us, it was actually something that I helped to create, and this is where my dispatcher lives and really gets the most useful information and most effectively manages men, trucks, and the like. We also have a brand new feature that we released probably about 3 weeks ago, Calendar Dispatch, which is an alternative to the traditional work order scheduling. I want to show you how to use that and some of the functionality there. And then also a brand new feature that was just released last week, worker hours. And this is something that I helped design as well, especially right now, navigating through the pandemic where, I assume that most companies here have seen a downturn and there are some challenges for dispatch to keep everybody working and balance out workloads. And maybe if you were the recipient of a PPP, trying to keep your workforce on the payroll and just making sure that hours are distributed fairly and keeping track of, how many hours everybody's scheduled for and what they're trying to get and how many they're actually working. So that's a quick overview. And now I'm going to jump into our webinar. Okay. So I'm going to start with some important settings, and you're always going to find settings over here at the gear icon. And I'm going to start with lists. There are a couple of things here that are very relevant here in the dispatch tab. And I'm going to start with job activity. So these are fully customizable, and these activities relate directly to the work order. They're at the work order level, and this is essentially the activity that a crew will be performing on any given day. You might have a multi-day service where day one is packing, day two is load only, day three is coming into storage. Out in the future, you're delivering out from storage, unpacking. That's really the concept of activities. And this is where you would set all those up specific to your company and what you call them and traditional functions that you're doing. Okay, another setting is also in the same place, list, dispatch, and shifts. You'll see these shifts available in the work order and on the forecast view. And essentially in Movegistics, we have three shifts. We call them the AM shift, the PM shift, and the day shift or the all-day shift. You can name them, custom name if you'd like. And then you can also set your default shop reporting time. The concept of shifts is this. As we all know, oftentimes you'll have a crew scheduled, maybe it's 2 men in a truck, and it's looking like just a half a day's work. It's a 3-hour minimum, and those guys are going to be done by lunchtime, and you potentially want to dispatch them elsewhere to do another similar job in the afternoon. And so by utilizing the AM and PM shifts, I'll show you later in the calendar how you can help to identify when you have a crew that is going to be done early and you can send them elsewhere, or maybe a late start job. And so that's the concept behind AM shifts and PM shifts. Again, you can set your default reporting time, and then the day shift really means that crew is expected to be occupied all day. Maybe it's an 8-hour not to exceed, or 6 or 7 hours, and that's the only thing the crew is going to do that day, and you're not going to be dispatching them elsewhere. Okay, and then last setting is going to be resource type, and that's going to be here in lists, HR, and designation resource type. This is system-wide that is applicable in user profile and worker profile. For our purposes today, we're really just going to focus on the worker profile. And so in this particular instance, we have driver and worker. This is our demo environment. There is somewhat of a new setting here as well related to the spot rates that we just released, especially on a commercial level. And so if I go into my settings here, there's a checkbox to say that this is an assignable resource for spot rates and work orders. This also means that this resource will count as an available resource, and then if it's booked, deduct from availability counts. So for another example, an office manager, somebody in my office, they don't really have an impact on my availability counts, so I would not check this box. I'm not assigning that person in work orders, and I don't want it to affect my resource availability. So that's a new checkbox in our resource type list. Okay, moving on to some other important settings here, and that is going to be the calendar. So gear, personalize, and calendar settings. The first one, really, really important for dispatching, and I'll show you later if you're not using our Google Invite feature for scheduling your crews, you're going to want to use that feature. It's one of the best features that we have for dispatching. So if you haven't already, here's going to be the link where you can integrate your Google Calendar. And then we have some options for default views. And so this is when I click on my calendar icon, where does it take me first? For me, I always like it to go to the month view. You may have a different preference here. And then this next group of settings is for our new calendar dispatch feature. And the classic view is that pop-up you see on the calendar that's really a read-only pop-up. There's no action. You're just trying to get information about the job. And that's what I want to see on almost every view. except the forecast view. That's where we do most of our scheduling on a dispatch level. And so I've chosen to display the new dispatch view on that particular pop-up. A couple other considerations here. On any view, you can see all the different types of events that exist in Movegistics: pending jobs, booked jobs, scheduled surveys, custom events, task routes, etc. I only like to see certain things on certain views, and that's where this setting comes into play. For the month view, I only want to see my jobs. I don't want the monthly view cluttered up with survey appointments, custom events, tasks. When you start to mix all those things into the monthly view, there's just too much data and it all starts to blend together and it's hard to differentiate what's what. And so I set up my monthly view to only show jobs. The weekly view, however, we treat the weekly view as our office calendar. This is where I want to see survey appointments. This is where I want to see custom events. Now, the concept of custom event, it's really just a personal appointment. If I want to put on the schedule that I have a doctor's appointment from 2 to 4 p.m., that's a custom event. And so when I click on the weekly view, that's all I want to see is basically our internal schedule. I don't want to see jobs here. Maybe some users might want to see tasks. That's another option for the weekly view. But again, I treat the weekly view like our office calendar. The day view really is at the worker level, and so I only want to see jobs there as well. And then same thing with the forecast view. I only want to see jobs there, and that's where I'm going to have my dispatch pop up, and just really centered around the dispatch function on the forecast view. So this is how I like to set up my calendars. Feel free to do so however you'd like. All right, color coding. So this is a big thing in Movegistics, and depending on how you decide to color code things, it can make a difference in how you view things and how quickly you can access information. For jobs, I like to color my jobs by activity. So that was the original list I showed you going in, setting up the packing, load only, unload only, long distance, vaults in, vaults out, whatever those might be, and set up your colors for those various activities. That way, when you look at the calendar, you can easily identify exactly what that crew is doing that day, regardless of move type, service type, sales rep, things like that. I like to view the calendar by job activity. For the weekly view, that's where the surveyor colors come into play. And I just match up this exact same surveyor color with the custom event color, so that your brain starts to get trained. When I see orange, that means Casey. When I see red, that means Rucci. So setting up your event colors and your surveyor colors to be the same thing. Here's another setting to show your availability counts. Do you want to see availability counts on the calendar? I absolutely do. They are available in the daily job chart as well, but here's where you could toggle that on and off. And then this is also a brand new feature. We heard a lot of feedback from our customers about the Google invite for crew scheduling. And one of the common things that we would hear is, I don't want my guys to get that much information. And so what we've done is we've created a setting here where you can choose what they see or what they don't see in that Google invite. If all you want to send them is their start time, you can do that. You would just select shop reporting time. And so this will toggle on and off the fields that are pushed out to the crew for the Google invite. Okay. And then the last thing, not really related to Movegistics settings, but a very useful Chrome add-in that I've found. And we do recommend primarily using Chrome for Movegistics. And that's going to be this WZoom extension. So you can just go to the Chrome Web Store, search for WZoom, and install it. And you'll see your little WZoom icon pop up here in your extension bar. The purpose of that is, with Google Chrome, the default zoom settings, if I start to zoom in or out on a page, it's going to keep that same zoom level across the domain. So everything that ends in movegistics.com now is going to be at 67%. And as you can see on this particular screen, it starts to get really, really small. But there are some screens that I want to zoom out this far, but I don't want it to be that way across every page that I have open. And so that's where this W zoom allows you to adjust the zoom level only for the page that you're on. And that comes in extremely handy, especially on the forecast view. So you can zoom out, see a lot more data, but then when you go to the daily job chart after that, it's not at a 50% zoom level. So this W zoom Chrome extension I've found to be extremely useful. Okay, next set of settings is going to be at the worker level. So clicking on the hamburger menu to dispatching and to workers. And this is going to have your entire worker list. If I open up, if I add a new or edit an existing worker, here are some important settings to be aware of. Right up here at the top, this Google, email, text. This is going to be the default notification type when you schedule that worker. You've seen that in the work order, those check boxes. If you don't want to have to manually check every single time, then go ahead and set that up in the worker profile. For us, we solely use the Google Calendar invite. It's awesome. It's incredibly flexible. It's easy. I don't like to bombard my guys with emails and text messages, especially with how fluid the schedule is. You might build out next week and you sent them 7 emails and 7 text messages, and then one job reschedules and you changed it, and then you're texting them again. And now they're filtering through 27 text messages trying to figure out exactly when they work. So I would highly recommend exploring this Google Calendar invite, and I will show that to you later. Okay, the other designation here, this is that list, the resource type. That's where that comes into play for designation. And then we've got worker badges. And I find this to be just a great feature. A lot of times your dispatcher knows everybody, knows what they can do, what their skill sets are. But especially in the summer when you ramp up and you add new people, or maybe if the dispatcher's out sick and you're trying to build the schedule, you might not know everybody's capabilities and skill sets. And so that's where the worker badges really come into play. If anything, at a very minimum, I would recommend setting this worker level from bronze to diamond, because these have a numerical value. Bronze equals 1, silver equals 2, gold 3, platinum 4, diamond 5. It's essentially a numerical rating of how good of a worker is that person. That'll come into play with what we call crew strength. And so if you assign 2 workers to a crew, one's a 5 and one's a 3, the average is 4. That gives you a crew strength of 4. So it's an indicator of the quality of your crew. And if, as a dispatcher, you're looking at a VIP white glove service and your crew strength is 2.3, well, you really might want to reconsider and make some changes to the schedule. Some other useful badges here are driver's license type. Sometimes, a guy doesn't have a driver's license, and you need to know that because maybe you need a personal vehicle on the particular job. Class C, Class B, Class A, all the different driver's license type. Then worker rank, from new hire to crew member, supervisor, crew chief. And then some specialized skill sets. What type of a job are they willing to do? Do they have DoD base clearance? So again, kind of specialty skill sets at the worker level. And then some additional important fields here. Putting in the rate per hour is really helpful when doing job costing and profit analysis. And then this is a brand new field, and this is target hours per week. If they're a full-time guy, maybe that's 40. If they're a part-time guy, maybe it's 20. We use this, like I said, under current conditions. We looked back at, what were the average workloads of our whole crew over the past 12 months. And in trying to balance out workloads, we use that for target hours. Some guys average 52 hours a week. Some guys average 24. And so it just really helps dispatch, again, trying to balance out that workload. Okay, so that's about it on a worker setting related to dispatch. And then lastly, I want to show you equipment. So this is where you set up all your trucks. And kind of a little known setting that's actually pretty important. When you've got pickup trucks, pack vans, things like that, that you need to assign in the work order, but you don't want them affecting your availability counts, you can go into the settings here and you can check this box to exclude them from availability so that it's not going to affect the number of real moving trucks you have available. And this puts it in a category called other equipment in the work order that still allows it to be an assignable resource and still shows it on the forecast view. So exclude from availability. You'll also see, and this is just a unique little thing that I do, here are my other equipment items. I've got a couple pickup trucks and a cargo trailer, and if we need to assign a guy to take his own car, we created an other equipment called personal auto. I put a Z in front of them in the name of the equipment. And the reason I did that is because they're sorted in alphabetical order. And I don't want these other equipments kind of mixed up in the list with my trucks. I want them all lumped together. So I put a Z so they're all lumped together at the bottom of the list. If you'd prefer them at the top of the list, put a little A. It looks a little funky, but for operational purposes, it's extremely useful. Now we're going to get to managing your worker availability. This is best done from the daily job chart. This is going to give you detailed information about your total workers available, how many have been scheduled, how many have been dispatched, etc. And this is also the easiest place to manage the availability of your workers. So a master setting here is recurring availability. And this is where you're going to go in and you're going to set the regular days of the week that somebody is available. You've got your weekend warriors. Maybe they're only available on Saturdays and Sundays. So I would take this guy off during the week. He will still show up in my total number of worker count, but he will be marked as unavailable, which will show me my true availability. You can also take them off for a shift. So for example, a guy has class every Tuesday morning. So he's not available to work in the morning, but he's done at 12 and he could come in for an afternoon shift or help a crew out. So I would take him off every Tuesday morning in the AM. And so again, this is just your master roster that'll help dictate all of your recurring availability. Now you're also going to have just those single day time off requests. So I'm going to go back to the daily job chart. And let's say you get a text or an email or phone call from one of your guys and he needs Friday off for whatever reason. I'm going to go to Friday. I'll click on my worker daily roster. These guys that are unchecked are unavailable. It looks like these are most likely from recurring request. But let's say David called me and he's not available Friday. I'm going to remove him from the roster that day and save. Now, if I go back into the daily roster, I can see that when a change has been made here, it's user, date, and time stamped. So I can see who did that. Maybe I could go ask my dispatcher, hey, why is this guy off? I need him, or something along those lines, or just make sure that you didn't do something by accident. So you do have a record of action that are taken on this screen. Every time you use that daily roster, a log is also created here in leave of absence. And so I can see here's this time off request, the single day for David Miller, and I can come in here and make notes about this and save that. Also for extended absences, here's the best practice for that. If a guy comes in and says, hey, I'm going on a family vacation starting the 11th. I'm going to go to the 11th. I'll take Juan off for that day. Then I'm going to go into my log, open up that request, and I'm just going to extend it for the requested period of time. I'll make a note here. And that's how you manage your worker availability. So between those three options, setting your recurring days, individual time off request, or extended leave of absence, that's how you're going to do it. For trucks, so if you want to take a truck out of service for a single day, maybe it's just getting an oil change, it's going to work the same way. I'll go to the particular day, click on my truck's daily roster, and remove the truck for that day. It will now be deducted from my availability counts and will show as unavailable. If you need to put a truck out of service for an extended period of time, that's actually over here in the equipment settings. And I would come in and edit that truck, put it out of service. Maybe it's going to be in the shop for 3 weeks. That's where you would handle those extended out of service needs for your trucks and equipment. Okay, and so now on the daily job chart, if I click on, I have 21 men total on my crew, but 4 are unavailable, absent equals unavailable. And if I click on that, it'll tell me who's off and why. If I go to a different date, here I can see, here's that one day that is just a single worker absence, and I can see the reason why he's off. If I move into the following week, I can see here's Juan that I put off on an extended absence family vacation. So clicking on the hyperlink for absent gives you detailed info about who's off and why. So then that leaves me with 16 total available workers. As I book jobs, let's say I book a job for 6 weeks from now. I have no idea who I'm going to actually assign to that job. But on that day, if I only had 16 guys available and now I've booked a job for 6, now I really only have 10 guys available, and I need to know that. And so that would show up here as 6 booked. And now instead of 16 total men available, it would show 10 total men available. When I actually schedule the guys, it's going to move them into dispatch status, and then I can click and see who's been assigned to what job. Same concept works with trucks. If I click on a truck, I can see which one's out of service or which ones are out of service, managing right here from the daily job chart. So aside from the daily job chart, there are a couple other places to view availability. And for me, the best place is the monthly view. And that's why I've set my default calendar view to be monthly, so that when I click there, it takes me right to this screen. And I can see in the margin here my man count and my truck count. So on this particular day, I'm booked. I have 0 men available. I got 5 trucks sitting in the yard. Not ideal, but that's what it is. I can see this day I have 4 men left. This day, -2. So I've got an exclamation point here indicating to me that I'm overbooked that day. I'm either going to have to just figure it out, short a crew, or maybe make some calls and see if someone wants to change their move date. So that's where availability counts really come in handy on the monthly view. When you've got a customer that calls in wanting to book, and you look at their quote and see that they require 4 men and 2 trucks, I'm going to come straight to the monthly view, and they say, yeah, I'd like to book that on Monday the 4th. Well, instantly I can see that I don't have 4 men and 2 trucks on Monday the 4th, but I do on Tuesday the 5th. Will that work for you, Mr. Customer? Hopefully it will. And then lastly, the forecast view is another place where I can see detailed availability information up here in the margin for my men and truck counts. Okay, moving on to dispatching. Traditionally, we are doing dispatching from the work order. So from any job that you have on the schedule, this is the classic pop-up from the settings that were discussed. Click on Manage Job to take me right into the work order. And I'm just going to go through some of the key elements of the work order that relate to everything that we're talking about today. Okay, so first thing is your man and truck counts here are obviously important, but more important than those for availability counts are your resource slots. And they should always match exactly. 4 men, 4 slots, 1 truck, 1 slot. It's really the slots that dictate your availability counts. Now, as I change crew size up here to 6, now I have 6 slots. If I change it back to 3, it's going to adjust accordingly to 3. Same thing with trucks. However, if you make a lot of changes, save, maybe you get a little hang up in the system when you save, it's a good idea to always just check and make sure that your resource slots and your man counts add up properly. Projected hours, and you can use a range or just the standard that'll come from your estimate. These hours in the work order are now going to be important for tracking those projected target and actual hours that we've been talking about. So just as a best practices, I always like to go through my work order. Here's the activity that we had talked about as well. Make sure that your activity, your man counts, your rates, your hours, everything are reflective of what the crew is going to be doing that day. Start time. This is the customer start time, what time your crew will be on location. And then down below, reporting time. This is when your crew needs to report to the shop in order to get everything ready to be at the customer's house for the scheduled start time. Mm-hmm. Here's also where you could change your shift. If you think this is going to be just a morning job, or it needs to start in the afternoon, or it's going to be all day, here's where you can change that. You're going to have your default reporting time that you set up, but you can also just do a manual override here if you need to. The badge function. So if this is a pack and move same day, and I want to make sure that I've got a good crew out there and that I've got guys that know how to pack. Clicking on the little badge icon is going to bring up your badge search here, and I'm going to go ahead and search just by certified packers. And actually, maybe I want to, make sure that I got at least platinum level crew out here. I'll click search. That's going to show me the guys that meet that criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and assign. Okay, within the work order, here's a little safeguard. I had taken David Miller off the roster for that day, and he is not available, but I could override it if I want. I'm actually not going to assign him. And then as I build out my crew here, their badges will start to pop up. And also my crew strength will start to populate, again, based on this first badge. So pretty strong crew so far. All right, I've assigned all 5 guys, crew strength 3.8. And I want to notify all of them. So in my settings for these guys, I had checked that Google Calendar by default. I didn't for these guys, so I'm going to have to manually send it out to them. And I can also designate the supervisor here. And this will just show on the job summary report and on the Google invite who's designated as supervisor for that day. Down below, I can also assign my trucks. And then here's that other equipment. If you need to send out pickup truck, pack van, whatever it is, you can assign that here in the work order as well. Any supplies can populate from the quote, or I can manually add those here. And not just materials, but small tools and equipment, things that the guys might need. Even just kind of an indicator to the dispatcher, maybe what kind of truck he might need. So if I book the job and I put liftgate required down here in supplies, as a dispatcher, I'm going to say, oh, I better make sure that I've got a liftgate on this truck, on this job. There's a truck with a lift gate. Okay, special instructions. This one's an important one. You got your activity log and your job level notes, but this is really day specific. These are things that you really want that crew to know on that day. All right, everything looks good, and I'm going to go ahead and hit send to notify all my guys that they're working. All right, that pretty much covers the work order and the traditional method of scheduling. It can be pretty tedious to reference the calendar, open up each job, go to the work order, schedule your guys. You can't really see who's available, who's not, and it can just be a bit of a time-consuming process to do it all through the work order. And that's why we created our calendar dispatch feature. So I'm going to go to the calendar and to my forecast view where I've enabled calendar dispatch. Again, this is where this W zoom add-in comes in really handy. I can zoom out a little bit and just get more data and info. This forecast view is really at the worker level. So you see the workers down the left-hand side. This is a 1 week period of time. And all of these gray bars represent unavailability. And if I hover over, it tells me why. So this is one of my weekend warriors. He's unavailable Monday through Friday. This was a guy that I had taken off only on Tuesday mornings, Monday afternoons. If I click on a guy, I get this red bar that highlights who I'm looking at. So Rob's available 7 days a week. You can also see that each day is divided into shifts, AM, PM. So here would be an AM only job. These would be an all day job. Okay, a key element for dispatcher here. He's actually right down here at the bottom. And these are the unassigned jobs. These are jobs that need resources. In this case, since I'm on the worker view, these jobs need workers. And it could be that they need all the workers. If it's 5-man crew, it needs 5 guys assigned. Or maybe 4 guys are assigned and it's still missing one of those resource slots is blank. It will still show up here as unassigned jobs. Same concept. If I click on trucks, it's going to show me my equipment down the left-hand side. If you see, here's why I named my other equipment starting with a Z, so it filters them all down to the bottom here. And now when I click on unassigned jobs, these are jobs that are missing trucks. So you can toggle back and forth between the two. And here's where the calendar dispatch pop-up comes into play. So I can see here not only calendar dispatch, but the color by activity. And this is exactly why I do this. I know instantly when I look at this that light blue means packing. So I can see I've got 3 pack jobs in a row here. If I'm ordering supplies and I'm looking at the schedule, I better make sure that I've got enough to cover those pack jobs. I also know instantly that purple means storage, vaults in or vaults out. If I hover over, I can see the job activity in the top right, vaults in, more vaults in, vaults in, more vaults in. I got a lot of stuff coming into storage next week. My warehousemen better get those vaults pulled and prepped. I also know that red instantly means intrastate. And so I've got a 6-day intrastate move for whatever reason. But those color indicators can just help you really quickly identify what types of jobs you have going on. This green means it's just a regular local move. This teal color is a 1-day pack and move. Black, I think, is unpacking. No, box pickup. Again, you can set those up however you'd like. And now when I'm on this screen, if I click on a job, instead of that traditional read-only data pop-up, this is what we call our calendar dispatch view. Up here, we have really all the information from the work order, if it's set. So in the work order, I didn't put a shop reporting time. I can click on Manage Job, and that'll take me right to the work order if I want to make some changes. The one interactive field here are the work order notes, which is the exact same field that you have at the bottom of the work order. And these are day specific. I can also see here that this job requires 5 men and 2 trucks. And down here, I can see my whole roster. Some of these workers have a red strike through. If I try to assign this worker, it's going to tell me that he's unavailable. That's either a recurring single time off or extended absence. And so it tells me that that guy's not available. There also is the circumstance where maybe a guy says, hey, you know what, I'm actually free today if something comes up and maybe I want to manually override and assign him. I can do that if I choose to. But very quickly, I can assign 5 guys to this job. If I realize I made a mistake, I can remove them here and add a couple of different guys. My crew strength updates as I add them. And then also, I have 5. This work order calls for 5. I have 5. If I try to add another guy, it's going to tell me, you've assigned the max number. Are you sure you want to do that? Yeah, I had this guy in here. He's just an extra. I want to override him. So I can add a 6th guy. Same concept with trucks. You can add those here. You can also add other equipment. You can choose your invite method, designate a supervisor, and send that invite and schedule this job. Automatically, it's going to refresh right back to the forecast view, and you can move on to the next job. And just like that, without having to open up the work order, I've assigned my crew. Down the left-hand side here, you'll see target hours. So this was in the worker setting. These are the amount of hours that I'm trying to get for a particular worker during any given week. The next column is projected hours. This shows how many hours they've been scheduled for according to the work orders. So if I hover down in the bottom right, I can see estimated hours 6 on this work order, 7 on this work order, and 7.25 on this work order. For long distance moves, it's up to you, but I put 10 hours in the work order, and then that 10 hours will be multiplied by the number of days that that work order extends to. I can also hop over here to trucks and see if I'm missing any trucks. And from this screen, it looked like I was missing 1 truck on that job. Go ahead and send it out. You can also see the red notification verifying that you've sent that invite out to the worker. As I complete and close jobs, the actual hours will update based on your job costing, and will let you know how many actual hours they worked compared to how many they were projected compared to the target. The last thing I want to show you here is that actual Google Invite scheduling. I'm going to switch over to my iPad here, but this works on any mobile device, phone, etc. Have your crew download the Google Calendar app. Make sure you put their email address in the settings. And now, when I open Google Calendar, I can see all those jobs that I've just been assigned to that week. I can click in. I can see who I'm working with, what time I'm supposed to be there in bold, the work order notes or activity in bold, and then work order notes down here in bold. Again, these are those on-off buttons where you can decide what other information you want to display to your crew. All right, I can also click here to the job summary. And this would be one of your templates that you've set up, and they can get more information about the job, what materials they're supposed to bring, room by room inventory. Again, this template is entirely customizable and based on your settings. And then one of the coolest new features that we have based on popular demand, you want to know that your guys are going to show up. So right here on the Google Invite, they can respond to confirm whether they'll be there for their scheduled shift, or if they're not going to be there, maybe. For me personally, I treat this is not an option. I'm telling you when you're scheduled and you need to be here. I have the luxury of having an amazing crew, very reliable, and I don't really have to worry about it. We hear from a lot of customers that unfortunately that's not the case all the time, and they want to know for sure, and they want to hold their guys accountable that they're going to be there. So you can just implement company policy, please respond, to your Google Invites. On the worker side of thing, when I've responded, it turns a dark blue. I'm going to put no on this one. And on my side, it stays on my calendar, but now I have a strike through. So where can I see that in Movegistics? Well, that's for the 4th, 5th, and 6th. There's a couple of places. The easiest one is going to be back on the daily job chart. And let's go to the 4th. Here's my workers that have been assigned. And right here, I can see everyone who's been scheduled that day and what their status is. I can see that Apollo accepted his invitation. On to the 5th. All right, still waiting on response from these guys. And then I believe on the 6th, we put no. And I can see that he's rejected that invitation for whatever reason. You can also see this at the work order level. This was going to be for Frank S. Let's take a look at that work order. And here I can see at the work order level his status invite. So those are some tips and tricks and new features and settings that we've released. I hope that you all take advantage of some of the really powerful features that we have for dispatching and managing your crew. I guess one last thought here. I also want to show you how nice it is and one of the main reasons for using the Google scheduling. Like we talked about, things change. And so if this customer calls in and they change their date, it's as simple as changing the date in the work order and hitting send. On the worker side of things, going back to my iPad, that automatically changed now to a new invite for the 9th. I don't need to text them. I don't need to call them. I don't need to email them. It just automatically changed on their schedule. So that's one of the best features of using the Google Invite. Again, thank you all for your business. We appreciate you. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy out there. And please feel free to reach out if we can be of any assistance implementing any of these features today. We'll send you a recording so that you can review. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your business. Everybody have a great day.